Okay, in this lesson, we're going to be looking at chapter 1 and the first part of the main chapter lesson. We'll be doing this one in Photopea. Another video will be put up for doing this in Photoshop. Photopea is what you'll probably be using if you're doing this at home. Okay, so the one we're working on right now is this one here called Wildlife Park. And I'm going to scroll down first and get the image for that one. The image we're going to be using is eagle.jpg. So I'm going to click on eagle.jpg. There it is. Next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and download eagle.jpg. Okay, now that it's downloaded, I'm going to come over here and click on the caret right there, show in folder. Now, if you're doing this in your Chromebook, things will be a little bit different, but still kind of similar. We have Eagle right here. What I want you to do with this is drag it into your pictures folder. It's just going to work better that way. So again, if all you've got is something here that says this PC right here, I'm going to go ahead and click on that downward pointed arrow right there, and there's pictures. Now, I'm going to drag it into something called Photoshop. You don't need to. You could probably just drag it in your pictures. I don't think you have that much there right now. So I'm going to go ahead and press the left mouse button down on that, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag that into, actually, in my case, Photopea. Okay, so that part's done. We've downloaded the image and we put it into a folder. That's about all we're doing here. So the next thing we're going to do is go open Photopea. Photopea.com. I'm going to minimize this if you can see it on your screen just to get it out of the way. I've got a few other things on the screen here that are sort of in the way. Move that up and see if it stays. So the next thing we're going to do is come over here and open that file. File, open. And go to Pictures. I'm going to go now to Photopea. And I'm going to find that eagle image, okay? You might have had it just like I said right here in Pictures. I'm going to go ahead and click on that and click on Open. And what you're over here, you might be seeing some advertisements over here on the side here. That's very possible, simply because Photopea is ad supported. So the next thing I'm going to do now is we're going to start with what it says in the book. And so before we go any further, we're going to go ahead and save this photo as a Photoshop document. Okay, so if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just turning back in the book here. So I'm going to come over here to File, Save as PSD. Let's go ahead and click on that. Now, right here where it says PSD files, when you downloaded it, you say you downloaded something called a JPEG, a JPG file. There are advantages to JPEGs. The big thing is JPEGs are compressed, they're small, so they transfer easily over the web, and they can be viewed with nearly any image viewing software. Photoshop documents are large. And in addition to being physically large, or as large in the amount of memory they take on your hard drive, they move very slowly over the internet, and they can only be opened by programs that can process Photoshop images, which is a really small subset. So why do we want to save them as PSDs then? Because the PSD saves all of the Photoshop information so that while we're working on it, it basically remains a Photoshop image, and it just works better. We don't have to fight as many things. With a small picture like this, to be honest, it isn't a huge difference. But there is a difference, and that difference will become noticeable later on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to name that eagle, and I'm going to put in today's date. So this is the 5th of November. And I'm going to save that. And you see now the name has changed up here if you were watching. I want to make this full screen, so I'm going to go ahead and press Control-0. I held the Control key down and I tap the number 0. The rulers here are put in by pressing Control-R. You can also come up here and go to View, Rulers. Does the same thing. If you look here, you'll notice it says Rulers, Control-R. Okay. Now, the first thing I'm going to do on this image is crop it. To crop is to cut away portions of the image. We want to basically move this eagle over to here. I talked about why we did that in class. On the video, I'm going to just be focusing on how to do these things and not nearly as much why we're doing it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select the crop tool. Having selected the crop tool, I'm going to make some changes up here. Up here in the option bar, I'm going to select delete cropped pixels. Free, I want fixed ratio, okay? Now, you suddenly notice it turned into a square here, and that's not what I want. So I'm now going to click on trim. Now we've got that. Now, what I want to do here is I want this vertical bar to be over the eagle's chest first. That's the first change I want to make. So I'm going to come to the corner here, and you notice that when I'm in the right spot, my cursor turns to a diagonal white arrow, okay? Now, I'm going to press and hold the left mouse button down. You can see that circle's just telling you that I'm holding the left mouse button down, and I'm pulling my mouse down or to the left. Okay, now you see that that line is over the eagle's chest. I like it there, so I'm going to release the mouse button. That part's done. So the second thing I'm going to do here is now I want this horizontal line to be on his chest. So now I'm going to, with my cursor inside of this area right here, I'm going to press and hold the left mouse button down, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that grid upward. And I'm pulling the grid upward until that line is over the eagle's chest. Okay. When everything is where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now, if I had messed up, okay, and I will go through it again really quick because I want to show you. Somehow you totally messed this image up, okay? What you would do is just go ahead and click on another tool over here, like the move tool, and then it would ask, do you want to crop? And you would say no, and then you'd start again. But I do want to crop this image, so I'm going to hit enter. Okay, done, cropped. That was the first part of the lesson, which was cropping a photo. And so that took us to from basically page number 32 over to page number 35. On page number 35, we start creating a border. Now, you might be wondering what pages I'm talking about. I'm going to come back over here really quick, and I'm going to click on home so I can show you where the book is, if you haven't already found the book. Come on. Chapter 3, Chapter 2, Chapter 1. Good. And right here, you see the Photoshop book. Photoshop Chapter 1, I'm going to right-click on it, open link in new tab, just so that you can see what's there. And eventually it'll finish loading, and the PDF will be here. There it is. And there's your PDF. Okay? So the book is there if you're looking for it. At this point, I'm going back to Photopea. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is put a border on this image. Now, I'm going to tell you right from the beginning, the border is not going to look as good as it does when you put it in Photoshop. That's just the reality. Second, the border, then we're going to be having to use numbers other than what you see in the book. Basically, we're going to have to half everything because otherwise, to be perfectly frank, it comes out looking really crummy. It does. And so I want you to just be aware of that. Now, in putting in the border, one of the first things I want to do is select the default colors. So on my keyboard, I'm going to press the letter D, as in Delta. Now, if you noticed, it switched these two. Okay, they were like that, and now I press the letter D, and now we have black over white, which is the way we want this to be right now. We want black over white. Okay, so far so good. Now we want to select the image. Oh, I can go Control-0 to make it full screen again. I don't want the cropping tool. Good. Okay. Now, so you saw, I'm going to select the rectangular marquee at this point, just to let you know where I'm at. The rectangular marquee right here. So now I'm going to go ahead and select the image. I can either go select by using Control-A or come to here and select all, Control-A. Now you see the dotted line, the marquee around the outside of the image. It doesn't appear to be moving like it does in Photoshop, but it's there. So the marquee, again, this is not as full-featured as Photoshop, but it's a tool you can use at home. So the next thing I want to do is put the black border around this. And the word we're going to use is we're going to apply a stroke. So we're going to come over here to Edit, Stroke. Now, this is where it's going to get a little bit confusing. We're going to use half the numbers that are in the book. And if you looked at page 37, page 37 tells you to use 75, okay? Okay, so half of 70, 35, half of 5, 2.5, 35, 36, 37.5. 37.5. And okay. And I didn't do what I wanted. Control Z to undo. Okay. I'm going to again do that. Edit. I want to show you what I did. Stroke. I want to put that inside. Okay. Now you can see that black border. Okay. So if you feel you needed to redo that, if you did it the first time I did it and now you're saying, oh no, he went back. First off, you noticed I pressed Control Z. The other thing is I can come over here to the layer and I can click on that layer and no, I can't delete it here. I gotta be able to delete it. That's interesting. I will have to look into that later. But I will tell you, just Control Z would have taken us back. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make another selection here, okay? And this part is important because we are going to be putting in two colors here. We want to get a little bit of a 3D effect. Again, not really great in Photopea, and I'm not going to deny it, but I want to show you the process, and if you were doing this in Photoshop, you discovered it looks pretty good. So at this point, I'm going to go to Select, Modify, and I want to modify the border. Okay, I'm going to make this, the book says 50, so we're going to make this 25. Okay, now you see that second border selection there. Now the next thing I need to do is reverse these two colors here. There are two things I can do. I can click on the reverse foreground background, which is this little arrowy thing right here, or I can press the letter X on my keyboard. Either one works fine. Now, edit, stroke. Okay, now you see our color is white. Okay, now again, I want to go half of what was in the book, and the book says here to go 25, so we're going to go 12.5. 12.5. We're not quite done yet. Position, center, and okay. And again, I'm not going to say it looks great. Okay, but this looks better in Photoshop, and it's a case of getting familiar with how to use it. Okay, now I want to get rid of these selections here. They're not really hurting anything, but they do look kind of crummy just on it. So they don't show up on your picture, by the way, if you were going to print it. So there are two ways. First off, I can come here to select and deselect, or I can on my keyboard simply press and hold the Control key down and tap the letter D. Either one works fine. Okay, and you see now I've deselected twice over here in the history. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is to resize this image. And this part's also really easy. Image, image size. Now, don't do anything here. Come over here and change this to inches first, okay? We talked about that in class. The only reason we modify in pixels is if you know why you're doing it, okay? So I'm going to come over here to height, and I'm going to change that to 4 inches high, okay? And they're still linked, so I'm going to click on OK. And Control 0 again, so I can actually see the image, and there it is. Okay, so this is as far as we're going today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this file, and oddly enough, doesn't give me the save. I need to save as a PSD again, and I noticed that with Photopea. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on Save, and it's going to ask you. It already exists. Yeah, because we saved that earlier. Do you want to replace it? Yes, we do. Okay, so this has been saved, and that's how to be where we are now in Photoshop. This took us basically up to page number. Sorry, I had this open a second ago. This took us to page number 46.